Let's talk about butlering for a moment, and about Paul Burrell in particular. You will lie for me when I am king. That's how he frames the moment a future monarch allegedly demanded complicity, and then the book thrown, the door slammed, the cry of "Get out!" Unmistakable, he says. I would say unfortunate for all the wrong reasons. The trouble for Mr. Burrell is simple. He trades in indiscretion while pretending to curate memory, and he says he wrote his latest trash in response to Harry's indiscreet memoir Spare. And I suspect the cause and effect are reversed. Burrell probably inspired Spare. What a dreadful man! And that is the nub. The former butler presents himself as the faithful witness who held his tongue until provoked by others, yet the record shows a pattern. A royal duty in 2003, timed to maximum effect. A fresh serialization in 2025, again carefully timed. Television, podcasts, column inches. Each time the same bargain is struck. Sell intimacy to the public and call it history. And let's take the latest claims by the Royal Insider series. He repeats the most incendiary private lines that Charles told Diana after Harry's birth. At least I've got an heir and spare now, and I can return to Camilla. He recounts the phone-chasing rows, the crockery-shattering scenes, the single bed in the dressing room, the 4-minute eggs, and the red ink memoranda. He says the Queen and Prince Philip backed Diana against their own son, and that Philip wrote in effect that he could not understand why Charles would prefer Camilla. He retells the Paris night, this time with the flourish that he always made sure Diana wore her seatbelt, and then hints darkly about what really happened. He adds the irresistible couture set piece about Christina Stambolian, the revenge dress, as if selecting a gown were akin to choosing a doctrine. Notice the technique. First, the direct quotation in heavy italics or quotation marks. Second, the domestic detail that reads like a props direction. Rush matting, watered weekly. Eggs boiled to the second. Notes slid under the door. Thirdly, the moral aside. He says Diana told him he never wanted a lover, he wanted a mother. He says he told Harry and William in 2017 the exact moment the marriage failed and that Harry stared at him poker-faced, bearing his mother's pain. He suggests this is the spark that powered Harry's later decisions, perhaps even the title Spare itself. The insinuation is always the same. Without Paul Burrell, the principals could not make sense of their own story. But butlering, in its better tradition, is the art of being absent while being indispensable. It is tact. It is closing a door quietly without later writing an affidavit about the handle. The best butlers are invisible in life and inaudible in print, and Burrell has inverted that rule and built a minor industry out of proximity. He is the masculine version, not terribly masculine, but a masculine version of Lady C. He tells us he was the only man she ever trusted, and then he cashes the cheque. There's another problem. He wants us to treat his testimony as probative when it suits him and decorative when it does not. Consider the notorious 1996 note predicting an accident in a car. He kept it for years, produced it when it served a commercial release, and watched as conspiracy theories bloomed again. Either such a document is evidence to be handled with forensic care, or it is a memento to be kept in silence. He managed to make it both, which is to say, neither. On the ethical plane, Burrell blurs legal with good. He is punctilious about the moment he refused to lie for Charles. Are you asking me to lie for you? Yes, I am. And he wants credit for a clean line there. Yet he shows no such restraint about broadcasting private pain. Telling a wife the truth about her husband's whereabouts is an elementary duty. Publishing a son's recollected grief is not a public service, it's a trade. He also overarches. He overdoes it. He overreaches. He over-eggs the omelette. He claims, for instance, that he always made sure Diana wore her seatbelt, and couples that with an invitation to revisit the parish crash. The implication is crafted to flatter his own diligence and to seed doubt about the fatal night. This is not history. It is a technique from tabloid melodrama, set an apparently factual hook, then tail insinuation. Responsible witnesses are careful about causation and careful about the limits of memory. He is not careful. What then should we do with his set pieces that undeniably have cultural bite? The revenge dress, the line, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," the dressing room bed, the 4-minute egg. We should place them where they belong, as scenes that help us understand how a modern monarchy became a soap opera and how the theatre of royal life migrated from balcony to living room. They are useful for cultural history precisely because they show the commodification of intimacy, but they are not reliable as constitutional or moral arguments. Even within his own pages, the roles swap hour by hour. Charles as petulant, then dignified. Diana as vulnerable, then manipulative. Staff as family, then bystanders. The only constant is the narrator's centrality. Paul Burrell at the heart of it all. He also mistakes proximity for virtue. To be in a room is not to be right about it. To carry a tray of coffee cups is not to understand the marriage at the table. He cannot resist letting us know that he was the one who found the Strambolian dress, that he whispered the line Diana should tell herself, "I am Diana, Princess of Wales, and I am here to stay." Very well, but the dress would have been fabulous without the prompter, and the line could have been supplied by any stylist, any friend, perhaps by Diana herself. What he sells is the fantasy that he alone could shift the dial of a life that was already global theatre. Now, to the claim that he only writes because others did first, he says his latest book is a reply to Harry. The Spare forced his hand. I don't buy it. The pattern predates Spare by decades. The defence is threadbare. In fact, the sequence makes more sense the other way round. A young man watches a generation of adults trade on his mother's memory. He internalizes the format, confession plus grievance plus moral, and later reproduces it in his own words with his own slant. If Burrell inspired anything, it was the template of monetized intimacy. He is cross to find the pupil outselling the tutor. What of the headline anecdote, the book thrown across the room, the command to lie? If true, it shows a prince in a corner trying to manage a domestic crisis with the wrong tool. It also shows a servant who knew the power of saying no. Yet even here, Burrell cannot resist staging it as an audition for his own moral authority. The point is not whether a prince lost his temper. The point is whether a memoirist can preserve confidences in the round while exposing a single moment for profit. He cannot, he did not, and there's a larger lesson. Monarchies survive not because they are perfect, but because they separate mystery from spectacle. Keep some things off stage and the ritual still works. Put everything on stage and it becomes a soap, which can run for years but at the cost of gravity. And Burrell's books pushed the institution towards the second fate. So did the Dimbleby documentary. So did Panorama. So does every carefully orchestrated leak and counter-leak. And if you want a republic, you could do worse than hire a team of courtiers with publishing contracts. You could do worse than hire Paul Burrell. So let's end where we began, with butlering. The vocation is a craft of small mercies, quiet breakfasts that arrive hot, doors that don't bang, calendars that work because someone has ironed the edges of chaos. The pride is in the unspoken, and Burrell has taken the opposite road. He speaks endlessly and loudly, declares his love for the principles while selling the footnotes that wound them, and congratulates himself for telling truths that were nobody's to tell. He says he protects Diana's legacy by repeating her despair. He says he protects the Queen by retailing the rules of eye contact. He says he protects the princes by narrating their tears. It's a protection as performance. So yes, "You will lie for me when I am king" is a dramatic line, and the throne book is good theatre, but do not mistake theatre for ethics. The ethical question is straightforward. When entrusted with a life, do you keep faith when the checks arrive? He didn't. He's been rewarded handsomely for that failure and will be again. If that sounds harsh, well, so be it. We should at least be honest about one thing in the saga. The kingdom of indiscretion has many courtiers, and Paul Burrell is its major domo.